Hello, and welcome to another edition of Enlightened Espresso. As usual, I'm here with Master Chung. Welcome. How are you?
Very good.
We were talking right before about this episode, and it's one of the biggest subjects that we could tackle. It's right, our existence and when we die. Mm-hmm. And I've received questions off camera about what happens from a Buddhist perspective when we die and our final breaths and then beyond. Can you talk a little bit about the death from a Buddhist perspective and where that journey begins and ends?
Instead of going the theories that maybe we have some arguments about, let me talk about the experience most of people have, and of course Paco, your father-in-law, has. So the moment we die, we always say the souls leave the body, but in the Buddhist terms, we say that the moment that everything stops, that moment our ever-present mind, the Buddha nature, the ever-present mind, the ever-present light will explode it, or it will illuminate, whatever verbs you use, but it's the most intense light, and you are that light. When you are that light, there's no past, no present, no future. You're always in that very present moment. So that is the intense lights, and that intense light have no boundary, no borders, no past, no present. But how long we stay in there? How long? Usually, our bad habits and the habit that we accumulated through our life will pull us out of that ever-present mind, and we fall right into what we call duality. We say a darkness. Some people say, oh, that's different kind of colors of lights. Either ways, it doesn't matter. But we are no longer be in the present. We have a time, we have history, and we go back into what we call the time-space continuum. And there is whatever we could talk about it, because there's so many theories about what happened to that. But the most important thing, I think, is how, as a Buddhist, the most practical is how you stay in that ever-present light.
And that's right? At that moment, and that's the Buddha mind you talk about?
Yes, the Buddha mind, the Buddhahood, the Buddha nature, or we call the ever-present.
Explain to our viewers what the Buddha mind is and what it means.
Yeah, actually, the Buddha mind is a made-up term, but it's ever-present. It's like the air, it's like the sunlight. You cannot never destroy it. You cannot create it. You just be there, in there. And it's so invisible, but you breathe with it, you live with it. You never realize how it is because it's so one with you. And therefore it becomes the blind spot. So ever-present mind, or the Buddha mind, it's just something, the stuff that we all experience, but we didn't really notice it. And so we have to sort of get out of ourselves and look it back in order to do it. So that is the role of meditation. So why we meditate? The role of meditation is, number one, is to realize that ever-present mind, always there. So you don't need to slide back and forth in the past. You're looking at the past, looking at all the experience you have in the past and your memory. You don't project yourself to the future, but you stay in that very present. So that's meditation. And then there is a way that meditation we can teach. So we call the seat of light. So you visualize the seat of light. For example, A, Ra, Va, for example, Va. So if you visualize those seats of light, then as the result, you be in the light. All the time in the light. You never leave the light. You are the light. However, because our habitual energy, our habits is so strong, so it will pull us out of that light. And therefore, you realize that last time we talked about when we meditate, the reason why we don't move our eyes, the souls, because we don't want to be disturbed by images. You see how nowadays we always looking for images, Netflix and whatever, always have something that we can look at. Right. So we are used to, the habitual energy is, we need to see something. And because of that, if you relax the eyes, you don't see any image. And you want to be familiar with that, no image, to the point that when you be in the light, you are not seeking for any images. If that's the case, and you always be in the present. So you learn to be in present. In my language is not like, okay, let's come back to the breath. But the ability to so familiar with the state when the eye was not moved. And then the noise in the head. So we have to learn how to relax the tongue completely, because the tongue connect with the language and to connect with the heart. So we want the heart to be so peaceful, and the thoughts and all the noise. The noise, usually you read some books, when you read, you hear the noise going. When you think, you hear the noise. Those noise have to be stopped, right? But if we don't stop those noise, then our habitual energy will pull us out of the light, the present light. It pulls us into the state of noise. For example, people report that when after they die, they're in the state of light, but just maybe a short time, and then they heard someone call their name. Hey, come. That noise. And we so follow that noise and that
That's
name.
the habitual energy?
That's habitual energy, because we are used to listen to the noise, the music, our name. So when people call our name, we pull into that, and we be pulling out of ever-present light.
So I want to understand, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when we talk about habitual energy, I think it would be fair
Habits.
for you to define that better for the audience, though, because we're hearing voices now, right, at the moment of
Right.
our death or right afterwards, and that's habitual energy, you're saying. What
Yes.
form is that taking?
Okay, habitual energy is our habit of listening, our habit of looking, our habit of tasting, our habit of movement. And that's why people don't move when you meditate. When we meditate, we don't move the tongue, we don't move the eyes, because that habits. And when that habits is accumulated for time after time, light after light, then we most likely, when something call our name, we follow that sound. With image coming up, we follow the image. We flow out. That is what we call habitual energy. Flow out to the sound, to the sight, to the movement, to the taste, to the smell. We flow out.
And so the goal, though, is to be the light,
Yeah.
and stay with the light at that moment.
Yeah.
And how do we have control over whether we stay with that light or we follow the habitual energy?
The habitual energy control us.
Okay.
So we have two things we have to do. One, we have to generate and keep that ever-present light, be aware all the time.
We do that while we're here on this
While we
earth.
meditate.
Okay.
That's what we do.
Okay.
But number two, we need to learn how to close that habits, meaning stop the habit to flow out. The habits of looking and searching for image, the habit of listening and follow the noise and search after noise and pleasant noise. For example, listen to our name, the habit of movement. And you see that it's very difficult. A lot of time we cannot move. We cannot be unmoved. We have to move. We cannot be still. So we have to stop that habit, movement. The habit of keep ourselves busy. We're always busy, always busy. So we need to stop that, because all that habits pull us out of the ever-present light. And that's what we call samsara, meaning you go into the cycle of birth and death,
Birth
if you
and
say
death.
that. But without the Buddhist label, you start to see that when we're getting out of this ever-present life, then a whole different life that we'll be taking on that we have no control over.
So let's follow that track. I become the light,
Right?
and I follow the habitual energy. I follow the voice. For many of us, right?
Okay,
probably me.
Yeah.
So we follow the light.
Right.
And I'm sorry, we follow the
sound.
habitual energy, the sound,
habitual, yeah.
and we come back. Are we back in samsara?
Yes, you go right into the darkness, the dualities and dualism. You just go right. So you can never stay in the... When you stay in the light, what is the reason why you need to stay in the light? Because you can choose where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose the course of action.
Okay. And give me an example of a course we might choose.
Okay, let's take example of your father-in-law. He heard the voice call his name, so he followed that voice, that means habitual energy. His habit to listen to his name. Oh, yes, my name. So you go to that calling. So he looked at his folks and his relatives, and they asked him, hey, stay here. This is happy. This is a very wonderful place. If he had the habit seeking for pleasure, seeking for comfort, probably he would stay there with them. But he followed his heart, which is not about pleasure, but about duty, about responsibility, So he had the different kind of habitual energy, his habit of being back his family, fulfill his responsibility, or whatever. But he won't stay there. He coming back. You see, so the habitual energy is so many. We just cannot count how many of them, uncountable, right? But now, in his case, he had a choice. He chose to come back. But in your case, maybe you don't want to choose to come back. Maybe you choose to be in higher plane of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And that's if you stay the light. And
Yes.
you make those choices.
Yes.
Can you choose to come back? Like, so if you become the light and you stay in the light,
Exactly.
what choices are there?
Many. For example, you
All
see
good
many,
ones, though.
You see many Tibetan masters, they choose to come back as their tunku, as reincarnated, because they have missions, they have vow that they come back. And so many masters in the East, in Japan, China, they all do that. They come back because they feel that that is a path that they have been chosen and they want to finish that path.
So is it fair to ask what path you've chosen?
Well, I choose to serve, and I don't know what it is, because sometimes if we are so hung up on the choice, that's no more fun.
So it's better not to question.
Better not to question. Better, rather than control the path, maybe we should control our monkey mind. I'd rather do that. And if the path take me to anywhere, maybe that's a journey. Maybe that's interesting. And it is our tradition not to pretty much reveal to people and be proud about my past or what I choose for the future. Let it be, so we can always stay in the light instead. So we emphasize more on the side of being in the light rather than what I was and what I will be.
Yeah, and well, I know I speak for myself, my family, the entire audience when I say we're glad you chose the path that you did. So I want to thank you for being here today. We'll talk about some of those other topics that came up, including duality,
Yes.
in another episode.